Outreach Committee of the Police Oversight Commission to order. Today's Thursday, September 12th. Members present. Is there a typo? I'm sorry, that was September. Today's October 10th. I'm sorry. Back to today's agenda. Apologize. And I'll still call us to order. First order of business, approval of the agenda. I have a motion to approve the agenda. I'll move it. Second?
Discussion.
Discussion? Matt?
I would just say that there's been some discussion about what committees have what authority in terms of, it came up in the long-term planning committee, so we had to change, we had to delete most of the last the agenda items at the last, I guess, September meeting. But I would suggest that since this committee, I would characterize this committee as a special committee, not a standing committee. And it's the motion to create it said that it shall assist the independent review officer in the development of a community outreach program and then report its recommendations back to the Police Oversight Commission. I would think that that's what we're doing, and therefore it's consistent to proceed on this agenda. Therefore, I would vote to approve the agenda.
Okay, and I'll, as an addendum to that, I recognize I was on the LTPC when you read out a memo that you had received from City Legal asking us to delete the items on the agenda. I received no such memo having to do with today's meeting, so there's no reason, except for the abundance of caution you've taken.
Okay.
So saying all in favor of approving the agenda, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Public comments. Is anyone interested to speak to us today?
Yeah, I didn't sign up, but I would like to say a couple things, if that's all right.
Small enough, and I think that's fine. Please come forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to...
Why don't you identify yourself?
Excuse me?
Identify yourself, please.
Oh, my name's Charles Erickson.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've seen your recently posted frequently asked questions, and I want to commend you all on a lot of hard work that you did here. But I did want to ask a few questions, or maybe just pose a few questions and have you guys think about this stuff. At the last POC meeting, you guys had quite a long discussion there from the legal department of the city about the relationship between the POC and the IRO. And so I don't know, I would assume that this was put together before that discussion. But I think there's a few misleading things in here as far as the independent review officer being under the direction of the POC. Since the POC doesn't have the authority to hire or fire her, I don't see that that's necessarily true.
Could you slow down a second? Does the FAQ say that we have the authority to hire and
The
fire?
FAQ says, what is the independent review office of the Police Oversight Commission? And the first statement says the independent review office is under the direction of the POC.
Okay, I take no issue with that.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that statement.
I'm just throwing these out here. Okay?
That's fine, thank you.
Then there's another one in here where it says the independent review office answers to the citizens on the POC. I don't see. Excuse me?
What page is that on?
Page 2. Under is the independent review office of the Police Oversight Commission part of the Albuquerque Police Department. And granted, it isn't, but I don't necessarily think that it answers to the citizens on the POC either. Then further on down on that second page, it says, should I fear retaliation if I file a complaint? It says here that it says no, of course, and then it says here that there are rules and laws which prohibit anyone from retaliating against a witness or someone who files a complaint. Then further down, it says the Albuquerque Police Department has policies and procedures in place to prevent retaliation against complaints. Where can a person see those policies and procedures? Would it be possible?
There's a link on the website.
To the SOPs.
To the SOP.
But not policies and procedures, or chief's orders, or those types of things. There's no linkage to anything like that.
There should be a link to SOPs.
Yes, there is, but not policies and procedures or chief's orders.
I'm not even sure that I know the difference, so I appreciate you calling that to our attention. Do you,
Well, and
So-
the question the question that came to my mind is that on several occasions, I've heard Mr. Ellis and Mr. D'Angelo testify before the POC that they have been retaliated against in their processes that they've gone through with their complaints. And I was just curious if there was ever any follow-up on that, because at all those meetings, there was a representative of internal investigations, the IRO, commissioners, all those kinds of things.
okay.
And I never heard from either one of those gentlemen.
Can you pause for 1 second?
Sure.
Fellow commissioners, I find this to be a compelling and interesting presentation to us. With your permission, I'd like to extend his time. I think it's to the matter at heart. Is that right? Thank you.
Okay, so, what I'm saying is I'm fairly friendly with those two gentlemen, and I've never heard them talk about anyone ever coming to speak to them as to the retaliation that has occurred to them in their processes.
Ira Hemmer, first of all, do you know what a person ought to do in case they believe they've been retaliated against in that kind of instance?
It says in here that frequently asked questions. If you believe you have been retaliated against, you should file a second complaint, which
Okay.
they never have done.
So-
Mr. D'Angelo, as far as I'm aware of, and I don't know all of the history, or Mr. Ellis have ever filed a complaint. Mr. Ellis has sued the city on behalf of the trust for his son, his family, but Mr. D'Angelo, as far as I'm aware, has never filed a complaint.
And I'm a little bare, I don't have a copy of FAQs in front of me printed and here, but I appreciate your remarks, and I suppose that would be the first answer at least, is that that's what they ought to do, is follow up with the complaint.
Okay, but like I was saying, I think it would be really great if the citizens had access to these rules and laws and practices and procedures and policies and those things that are spoken about in context with that.
Understood. Commissioner Schein?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the IRO, I thought we had chief's orders. Don't we have chief's orders?
We have the SOPs.
Not the
So-
chief's order? Because I've seen, for example, maybe it was specially given to me, but I've seen, for example, a chief's order that preceded the video, SOP.
Most chief's orders get turned into SOPs, vast majority of them, and the reason chief's orders come out is because the SOP process is a process.
It's a way to get something out quickly.
Right, and so the vast majority of chief's orders turn into SOPs.
Do you know whether there are any chief's orders that haven't been turned into SOPs?
No idea, but I'm not saying that there's not, but I can just say it's the practice, such as the lapel camera got turned into an SOP.
Right. I mean, I haven't got the frequently asked questions in front of me either, but does it say in there, because it would be violation of chief's orders? And
No, it says policies and procedures, and I really think it's referring to an SOP. I don't have the SOPs in front of me, but I don't have it in front of me, but.
Well,
And
maybe,
this is supposed to be a general question and answer, not a specific legal document.
right.
And it shouldn't be misleading, and so far, I'm
It's
quite
not.
comfortable that it's not misleading.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it necessarily is, I'm just saying that from my own experiences,
If I could just finish, excuse me, Ms. Harrison, with Ms. Hammer, but what does it say in it? Should it be just saying, should it be saying SOPs, or is it,
Policies and procedures includes SOPs.
so you've used a generic term in there,
Right.
rather than that standard operating procedures.
Right.
Well, maybe it's something to consider just amending it to clarify that, so it just says standard operating procedures. Because that's a violation of the standard operating procedures to retaliate, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Less lingo is what I think.
Yeah.
How many more of these do you have? Somebody else in the audience is raising their hand, and I think I can speak to, so.
Well, there's
keep some order here.
only one other thing that I'd like to point out, and there's a statement in here at the top of page 3, under the heading that's on the very bottom of page 2, how the Independent Review Office of the Police Oversight Commission, how can the Independent Review Office of the Police Oversight Commission help? And in there, in that first paragraph, it talks about how the independent review office, through the citizen complaint office, is given full legal authority to investigate allegations of police conduct.
Misconduct.
I'm curious as to what that legal authority is.
First of all, 1 second. You say misconduct, he says conduct. What's the written?
It says misconduct.
Oh, I'm sorry, misconduct, right.
Okay, settle that.
I'm just curious
I
as
think
what
the
that legal authority is.
IRO can say, but my impression is the authority is the ordinance. The ordinance says that she shall investigate, fully investigate citizens' complaints.
Okay, but I'm still curious as to what the term legal, that, to me, that kind of means like in a court type
No,
of
no,
situation.
legal can mean, the ordinance is legal. The ordinance
It's
is
just-
the law.
It's a law, so.
It's
Yeah,
just,
it's the law.
so if legal was struck out of there and just saying given full authority to investigate allegations of police misconduct, would that?
The question would be where to get the authority.
Well, you could add in
Well.
from the ordinance.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're
then we're
trying-
just talking about.
Okay, I'm just throwing these
I
things
understand.
down, so.
It's good feedback because we want it to be a simple, transparent, legible,
Sure.
understandable document.
Sure,
And
sure.
the words you're saying are important words, at least to me.
All right,
How we act.
well, I appreciate it, I
Well,
appreciate you.
I don't know that we change any, but
Well-
these are for consideration.
Okay.
So it doesn't read
Then
simply.
there's just one other little thing that I'd like to point out.
Sure.
And it says the commission receives the cooperation of the Albuquerque Police Department. And I think it was at the last meeting of the full POC, I believe it was you, Commissioner Siegel, asked the representative from the police department, internal affairs, if they could give you their monthly report in a little different context so that you guys could have some continuity as far as being able to track the discipline that came out of whatever sustained whatever complaints were sustained by the POC and the IRO and the chief. And you pretty much got handed your hat on that. So I don't think you're getting as much cooperation as what you're talking about in here.
Well, there may be, you could have cooperation and there still may be disagreements on particular matters, obviously. I would just, Mr. Chair, I would just point out that, for example, you made reference to under the direction of the POC, the IRO acts under the direction of the POC, and that's language directly from the ordinance. And I understand that Mr. Du Bois at the last hearing was offering somewhat of a different view, but that doesn't necessarily mean I or the commission share that view. And I think from my point of view, that frequently asked question answer is an accurate one still.
Do you think Mr. Du Bois' position is representative of the city attorney?
That I don't know. I can't speak for Mr. Du Bois or the city's attorney. I have enough trouble speaking for myself. I don't know who he's cleared it with, but in any case, as I indicated in an earlier meeting today, ultimately it's the commission that interprets its own ordinance and its own rules, and not necessarily the city council is just, city attorney rather, just acts in a legal advisory capacity, but it's going to be the commission itself that makes the decision on its own rules, not an attorney.
And I would add to this that it's a process. And I'm reading now from the ordinance, powers and duties of the commission. The Police Oversight Commission shall have the following powers and duties, and I'm paraphrasing, but the first one is to promote a spirit of accountability and communication between the citizens and APD. And then the third one is to gain the cooperation of APD and solicit public input by holding regularly scheduled meetings. So there's a title zone where we're asking them for stuff they're not accustomed to giving, may have good reasons not to give, and may not have any reason not to give, but they're just not accustomed. And I'm not going to go out on a limb right now, but I think that that's a process that we're engaged in, trying to sort out how much we can have access to it, how much is truly important, not to me as an individual commissioner, and I did make a statement last month, but to the whole commission as a body. And where that goes, And the city's gonna have to sort that out, and as well resolve whether city legal would be representing of the various parties named, us, IRO, or APD, and if there is a difference between those. For now, we've got Du Bois. For now, those would be the pronouncements of city legal, such as they were. Some of them differ from the answers given in this FAQs and in the ordinance.
And, well, in that respect to that, the FAQs have not been given to city legal to review,
Oh, okay.
Not been given one.
city legal. So these are the opinions of the people in this room, well, these are the opinions of the commissioners in this room at one point in time.
And-
Well, they were
and
approved, I
also-
believe, by the POC.
And also the IRO.
And, yeah, and your office, and I'm sure your staff.
Well,
I'm sure
so- but
everybody
I'm
had a
saying
pass
that
at this.
These were drafted before the city attorney's, assistant city attorney gave his legal opinion.
Right.
And if there is an opinion from the city attorney, then I think that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, as far as if the city attorney wants to have an opinion about whether these answers are correct.
And I have no idea about the formality of putting it before the city attorney. As far as I'm concerned, it's a public document. It's out on our website for public use and consumption.
And the POC approved.
And the POC approved it. If we've done something wrong, they need to know about it and review it on behalf
I
of the
would
city.
assume Mr. Du Bois saw this before it was put out.
We didn't ask him to, and I don't know anything about whether he did or not, or whether he reviews our website regularly. I can't speak for him.
Well, anyway,
Thank you for your questions, and it's okay to bring them again,
Well, I
6 months
appreciate
later.
it.
It's meant to be a simple,
sure, I understand.
everybody's language document,
I
and it's
understand, I understand.
meant to be encouraging to citizens.
But if at all possible, I sure would like to be able to see the rules and regulations, policies and procedures that you guys are talking about here. If there's any way that they could be posted up like
Okay,
the
thank you.
SOPs are, that would be wonderful.
Cameron, did you have something to say? Oh, okay.
But Mr. Chair,
Go
if I
ahead.
may, but I think the IRS clarified that there really aren't any policies and procedures or general orders that are applicable to that answer, other than what's contained in the SOPs.
That's
Is that
my
correct?
belief, I can't say
No,
that
no,
100%
I don't
certainly.
believe that that's true. And
We can ask today.
I
Excuse me for
can
interrupting.
tell you that because I've gone through the legal process in criminal situations in the courts, and that is not true. There are policies and procedures and rules and regulations that have nothing to do with SOPs.
Well, I'm not saying that, I'm saying with respect to the retaliation section, I believe those are SOPs.
This came
That
up
may,
in the
that may
context-
be. that may
This
be.
came up in the context of retaliation.
Right.
Maybe more broadly, the citizens interested in having chief's orders and as much information as possible put on the web for public knowledge and understanding and consumption, which is a different question. We can bring that up at the full POC when APD makes its report.
Well, either that or the IRO, you could ask the IRO to inquire as to whether there is a substantial body of policies and procedures.
I don't know if there's a substantial.
Well, for instance,
Yeah.
I could throw one out for you right now. The first complaint I ever had with the POC dealt with a situation where my understanding is, okay, now, this came out later through my own persistence in asking questions, that internal affairs in the IRO's office, when they get a complaint, it goes to both offices, so they're both aware of it, okay? The situation I had, a police officer fudged or voided a traffic citation, but yet he still used that citation instead of voiding it, which is what's supposed to be done under the law. He handed that to the court as a criminal complaint. Because of foot dragging by the POC, or the IRO, which was not Ms. Hammer at that time, it took over 90 days for me to get a response with what was, as soon as I threw it on the investigator's desk, the complaint was a blatant violation of an SOP, okay? and also a criminal violation, because that was mishandling of a public document by the police officer, okay? And so since it took so long for the RO's office to come up with a finding, when I finally got that finding, of course, I won the case in court because the police department wouldn't cough up the SOPs and the policies and procedures and the rules and regulations, and the judge finally kicked it out for lack of prosecution. They didn't show up. She asked them to give me that information, and they finally just didn't show up one day, and she said, well, lack of prosecution, this case dismissed. But after I got the finding from the IRO's office, I went to internal investigations. I said, what about the criminal aspects of this? And they threw up in the air 60 days, our policy, 60 days of complaint. It's too late, sorry. Now, that's a policy and procedure that's not posted anywhere.
Okay.
So there's one for you right there.
What do you mean that they said that the complaint, a criminal complaint has to be brought to them within 60 days or they will not investigate it?
That's correct.
That's hard for me to believe, but anyway.
I got the emails and everything to show for you, and they're all from Lieutenant Miller.
Well, and I'm trying to sort out where that fits into the bundle we call outreach and how to bring it either to the attention of the POC or rightly air your concerns and carry them forward, but also to return to the problems and issues of outreach today,
Okay.
which I'd like to do.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm just
puzzled about the latter.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the wording and the things that are going on in here, and from my own experiences, what they mean to me. And I'm just trying to bring you my experiences and what these words mean, okay? And, you know, if you haven't been there, you wouldn't know it.
Thank you. And thank you, commissioners, for indulging me.
Okay, I appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Mr. Harrison. And we have one more speaker. Come on up.
Madam Speaker,
Sure.
I just want to make what I think is a small correction. I believe I heard Ms. Heimer state that Mr. Ellis had sued the city, and I do believe that that is incorrect. Mr. Ellis was not and has never been a named plaintiff in that litigation, but he has been apparently a very vocal supporter of family members involved in that litigation. So I believe that based on what I was hearing from Mr. Harrison, he was sort of championing Mr. Ellis and Mr. D'Angelo in the capacity just as citizens.
Okay, thank you. And that was Linda Donahue for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands up for public comment, then we will move to approval of minutes. I have a few minor corrections to make. On the FAQ document, as a matter of fact, it says Chair Siegel had some concerns. I'm just going to amend it to say Chair Siegel and Commissioner Cameron had concerns because we both enumerated several. This was under the, I'm reading from last month's minutes.
Yeah, I know where.
FAQ document discuss updates. So we'll just amend it to say that we both spoke with those. I don't believe you came in with any amendments to the FAQ document. Commissioner Shine, you discussed them with us at that time. And some minor word changes toward the end.
I
Move approval of the minutes amended. Go ahead.
No, I had some changes as well. I think in terms of accuracy, for example, on the top of page 2, where it says Commissioner Shine moved to approve the FAQs, what I did, I moved to recommend approval of the FAQs by the POC. And similarly, where it says a PowerPoint slide, the next thing down, we'll continue on a PowerPoint slide to deal with one legal question. Anyway, I was going to supply the slide, which I did before the October 10th meeting, but I'd have these changes, maybe add the
I'll
changes with your
pencil
changes.
these into the final one and sign it if that's all right.
Well,
City clerk can handle that, or do you need to
no, I
amend
think
them?
they gotta be timed.
You need to retype. Okay, I'll work with you on that then afterward. Move approval of these then with the amendments noted.
You know,
All in
second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, that unanimous? Staff's updates and recommendations. Development of PowerPoint for public presentations comments and progress and input from commissioners.
I added a slide which could be switched around in order depending on who's giving the, presentation to put the police oversight commissioner and independent review office first or second, depending on who's giving it. I made that change.
I see.
And I think that's pretty much the only change, the real substantive change.
Do you, is there, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Shine.
is it, where is the, was there not a slide in here about deadly force, SOP?
There is on the third page there.
Which, well, there's these slides on the other.
It's on page 5. Excuse me.
Okay.
In the middle. Actually, there are 3 slides on that page. And obviously, these are extracted summaries, it's just excerpts, I should say.
Yeah, they're not summaries, but they are extras.
All right, and what I would propose is maybe if I could propose a way to do this, I don't know if you can do it, is it just number these slides? It should be
Talk
somewhere.
about slide, they go down, or they go across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on page 5, we do that.
Yeah, no, I understand, but there may be some way, I think you put numbers on the slides themselves so that everybody can know or refer to a slide. But I would suggest that on page 5, the first slide, where it says use of deadly force, I would suggest that the language I drafted be put in directly after that slide, because that slide is the one that refers to the test of reasonably believed to be an immediate danger.
And you've presented this to the IRO, it came back to us by email. Why don't you read that out to the public and hear it?
Okay, this would be an additional slide. The slide, present slides, quotes the standard operating procedure on the use of deadly force. Officers are authorized to use deadly force for any means in order to, 1, protect the officer or others from what is reasonably believed to be an immediate threat of death or serious physical injury. And the slide that I would add would have, first bullet would be reasonably believed to be an immediate threat of serious physical injury, what an officer reasonably knew and believed, 1, at the time, 2, based upon his experience and training, and 3, making a split-second decision. And then another bullet indicating not relevant, that is what's not relevant. 1 is 20/20 hindsight, and the other is what officers knew or what others knew or believed. And those
Okay,
are
to which incidentally, I had a third bullet to offer to your slide, if you don't mind. Under not relevant.
Yeah.
And what's also not relevant is whether the citizen has a prior criminal record. Generally, the officers don't know.
If they don't know. but, you know,
That's, so that's not necessarily true,
Okay.
because if I'm a police officer and I have arrested Robin Hammer before for armed robbery in which he assaulted people and shot at them, that's something I can take into account when that's part of my experience and training, so I can take that into account when I gotta be careful approaching around him. So I
I'll strike that.
this is,
Thank you.
the point of this is, this is basically using current case law to try to reduce it to a fairly simple and notion so that the public understands that, just because someone is a nice guy and although he was mentally ill, everybody knew he was mentally ill, but knew that he was, a fellow who wouldn't hurt anybody. That doesn't mean that a police officer, when he confronts that person, and that person does something like pick up a weapon, is charged with that knowledge, because he doesn't know. It's what the officer knows at the time, not what, you can learn about the guy after the fact. That's what I mean by 20/20 hindsight. I mean, these are somewhat of notes that'll trigger a discussion, I hope, if someone's presenting this slide presentation.
Excellent. We have one spare set at the handout
There's more of them.
by dint of, okay, there's more over there by dint of Commissioner Foster not being here, if you all want to follow this. And because we're small and can be informal this way, if anyone else from the public has a comment on what we're talking about, you're welcome to make it at this time.
Talking about what police officers know prior to being involved with an individual, it's my understanding from the presentation that was given out to the public of the Real-Time Crime Center that they're doing everything in their power to inform the police officers as to what they're walking into. And so I think police officers know quite a bit more than what you might think.
No, but that's, if you're talking about the slide I prepared, that's what I mean when I say what the officer reasonably knew and believed at the time. I mean, if he's getting information from the Real-Time Crime Center about this person and the background and all kinds of other, then he's charged with all that knowledge. But the point is that just because, you know, the guy's wife knew that he was a mentally ill person, but he never would hurt anybody, doesn't mean that the officer can be charged with that knowledge when he has to make a decision as to whether to use deadly force. That's all I'm saying. That's the only point of the slide.
All right. Other questions? I have one more question for IRO Hammer. Have you ever rehearsed this, or do you have a sense of, if I were to tell my neighborhood group, this is ready and we'd like to make a presentation anytime it's convenient, how long would this take?
20 minutes.
It's a 20-minute presentation?
We could cut out slides and make it short.
Sure, or Q&A might even grow it to 30, depending on the group. That gives me a sense.
Have you practiced it?
I've given it.
Or have you given it? Okay, so it's about 20 minutes? Well, maybe 20 minutes, somebody else could be giving it, it could be 30 minutes or
It'd be
10
fine,
minutes.
go fast.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose that we add this slide, unless there are further discussions about it.
I have no objection.
Do you need a motion?
I don't think so. I think by consensus,
Just add it.
that'll be
Yeah.
added after, no
After
objection,
this slide.
after the noted slide on page 5,
Page 5, the top left slide.
slide on page 5, according to IRO Hammer's comment. Thank you for those comments and input, Commissioner Schein. Moving on then, personnel attendees, target audiences, roles. I asked everybody's help in discussing together staff presentations, how much you're prepared to do, and how much we can expect of you, as well as we can discuss POC member involvement and roles. Commissioner Schein, go ahead.
May I ask, are you making presentation now?
I made one to AP with this. I'm making one in October to the committee of block chairmen.
Excellent.
Committee of block chairman? Committee of block chairman.
It's like, I don't know, 200 people that are block watch chairman.
Like Crime Watch,
Black crime.
Crime watch stuff.
Neighborhood Watch.
Neighborhood watch stuff.
Oh, this is wonderful news. Would you, I don't know whether it's in your prepared remarks for
Yeah, I was gonna say.
POC, but this is truly excellent. I'm so happy to hear it.
Can you tell me when and where that is? I might like to just sit in and see how you make
I
the
can
presentation.
email it to you, I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's on a Saturday morning somewhere.
And when do you think it is? In October?
It's in October. Not this Saturday. A subsequent Saturday in
Okay.
October.
I'm really happy about that. I'd like to see the IRO office be out there on a fairly regular basis, and I think that such as they will, POC members could look toward their own personal involvement, at least on an annual basis, and that's, I don't know if it's a mandate as much as a hope and an expectation that we take this type of presentation out public, and with it, I think we may draw some questions and learn more about what we need to present, and what the public still wonders and wants to know.
Well, Mr.
There'll be a feedback process as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Chair, my recollection is when this committee was set up, one of the things we were going to be doing is, aside from helping to develop this stuff, which is apparently pretty well advanced, we were going to go back to the full POC with recommendations, and one of the issues was, should the people who go out be only the staff, the IRO and her staff, or should POC commissioners also be involved in this effort? And I think that's something we got to discuss, and then make a recommendation to the full POC. Does the IRO have any position on that?
Well, there's only one of me, the rest of my staff, it's a rare occasion when they have free time to go give presentations. Unless and until, there's discussion about adding, at least a part-time paid person for outreach. And I think that's aspirational on my part, but until that day, there's only one of me. And right now, the POC task force is allegedly meeting once a week, so my free time is somewhat limited.
POC task force?
Yeah, the city task force.
Oh, okay, that one.
Which I attend all those meetings.
Yeah, have they set up this meeting? So I heard that the last time they met, they were still up in the air about when they were, the schedules were.
The next meeting is the 17th, is the last public outreach.
That's the
And
town
then
hall meeting?
The town hall, and then the next one is the 24th, following week.
What's the 24th, or just a
It's a Thursday.
meeting of the task force itself rather than town hall?
Yes,
Is that the next one?
the next town, yes. I think there's discussion that might do business at the town hall, but I'm not sure.
Okay, it would be great if at the town hall and maybe at the other public meetings, if you brought along copies of our pamphlet, the famous one-page pamphlet, just to have it out there on the entrance table. And perhaps even a few copies of the FAQs, 5 or 10. Eventually they'll get used up anyway. Let the public know what we have available and make it available to do all the outreach we can at places you are anyway.
So what is your view on whether commissioners should go out and make these presentations?
I don't think that there's any problem with that. If someone wants to do it, I don't think it's not a mandate. It's not part of the requirements of the committee, the POC member.
Yeah. But you have no objection to the commissioners doing that?
No. You just have to be super duper careful about giving legal advice. I think you give information and stick to the slides at the end, and that needs to be the instruction to everyone.
Well, it's one of the primary duties of the independent review office to play an active public role in the community, and whenever possible, provide appropriate outreach to the community. So I would suggest that maybe between now and the next outreach committee meeting, you and your staff need to have a small discussion about finding a few hours a month for somebody to hit the streets. And
Excuse me. You're still backlogged, right, in your
Our priority is to get the CPCs out.
CPCs?
Commissioner Siegel, that's our priority. I'm not sending a single investigator anywhere but to their desk to type. And it's an obligation, yes, but all of the obligations of the IRO under the IRO contract are subject to timed availability. I really try to limit my work weeks to 50 to 60 hours. I'm not gonna go out beyond, especially while this POC task force is going on, which their meetings last from 5:30 to 8:30, once a week at
and
this point.
who has required you to go to those?
Myself. I have a
Well,
vast
that's your
amounts- Exactly.
prerogative, and I don't disagree with you going to those, but I would remind you
And I've
that
been
it's,
asked to speak on more than one occasion there. So it's not an extracurricular knitting class I'm going to. It's work-related activity that I'm doing.
I understand, and I note that it's one of the primary duties of the independent review office, in spite of the CPCs, which are definitely important.
They're the number one priority of the IRO's office is the CPCs. And everything else takes a second seat to that.
Mr. Chair, I must say, I concur with Commissioner Cameron that I don't think, especially now with the whole POC task force going on, that'll all be in flux. And I think that the IRO has to be involved in that process. That I to see her do one first, but I'd be willing to try to do some of these presentations just to take the heat off the IRO's office. But I don't know that we can, at least until the situation clarifies with the POC task force, I don't think we can
And
put unreasonable pressure on her to do this.
I'm not interested in unreasonable pressure, I am interested in performing all of our duties and
I understand.
doing as we are supposed to
I withdraw
do.
the statement on reasonable pressure. I think that we need to give leverage, have priority, set the priority that she do the task force. And I'm willing to try to help with the outreach by also doing some outreach.
And I do take offense of a direct order from a commissioner telling me how to do my job.
A commissioner won't give you a direct order. The commission, I believe, has the right. We'll see about that in due course. But, and I don't want to get in an argument about that, but I believe that I'm calling it to your attention that you can voluntarily go there and independently pick that up as one of your,
I am picking it up to
Crucial
the extent
tasks.
that I can. I'll address numerous hundreds of people this month.
that is fantastic. It's the first words out of my mouth when I heard you were doing it. Fantastic. Excellent.
If I can suggest, Mr. Chair, that we just move on from this issue and
All right. Again, I'll say that I had asked the IRO to consider it and come back to us with their availability, and it's not a matter of mandating it at this moment, either from me or from a committee, which is probably not authorized to do that, but to ask for her input and help.
I'd like to go on the record with a clear statement.
Sure.
And I think the IRO's office priority is to clear up the backlog of CPCs and to attend these Police Oversight Commission task force meetings until that process is straightened out. So I just want to make it clear that that's what I think priorities are.
Okay. That's your opinion as much as I can have an opinion too. And,
I must add, I share Commissioner Cameron's view. This next couple of months, theoretically through December, I can't imagine how they're going to finish in December, but anyway, at least in these next couple of months, I think, especially with the holidays coming up, I think setting up outreach meetings probably is not, should not be the highest priority for the IRO's office. But again, I'll try to help in the process. And if you, have you had, if I can ask, Sam, have you had requests for presentations that you've turned down because you don't have time?
No, I think that any presentation we give is going because we go find somebody that wants to listen to us.
Okay.
There's not been a single, any request for a presentation that I've had, I've done. I've done some to a college and to the department.
Okay, well, what I'm offering is if you get a request for a presentation and you decide because of your schedule or whatever happened, you can't do it, feel free to call me and I'll see if I can work it into my schedule. Assuming that I've gone once and seen how you presented, so at least I know what the ballpark issues are.
and I would as well. To finish up with this, I had listed APD's role, and I put that there so that we could again note that I would believe, unless others feel differently, that APD is most welcome to go to any of the presentations, but is not required and should not be the presenters.
My own view is APD's, I mean, if the police officers want to show up any place, they obviously have the right to show up any place.
Correct.
But I don't think there should be any role for the APD in these presentations. There should be presentations of the IRO and the POC. I think it sends a wrong signal to have the APD have any role in that process.
Concur. How are you feeling differently to that?
I would say any role will probably, I think that there will be times in which APD presents something at the same meeting. You know, for instance, this block captain thing, there's going to be a presentation by APD there on APD-related issues.
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, I'm just going to make sure it's clear.
Yeah,
They're not mutually, I don't think it needs to be mutually exclusive meetings, if you're cutting off opportunities opportunity. to
Absolutely
talk
not.
about it.
And in my neighborhood meetings, frequently the officers are there giving us crime reports.
Yeah, the West Side Coalition, the commanders of the West Side are also making a
Oh,
presentation.
Lastly, under item 3, locations, it said here, first trials, how many and where, and you will be presenting to the committee of block chairman of 200 people, and it seems to me an appropriate time to ask them to contact your office to set up individual slideshows for their community, so that the block captains will look at it, and then neighborhood associations or coalitions of neighborhoods you just spoke of could also ask the office for a presentation and work it into their schedule. So I think it's a great time for you to do the next level of outreach and start that rolling, and then we'll see how many requests we get.
Mr. Chair?
Sure, Shine.
I would just, as a caveat, I mean, again, I'm not sure how active we should be soliciting engagements for the next couple of months until this all settles out. I mean, I don't know whether if she makes that request to their block captains, she may end up getting 40 different people wanting to come out, 40 different groups wanting us to come out and make presentations, and we just couldn't do that.
I think a better thing would be to, obviously, all of these block captains have an email, and they have the organizer of this meeting, which is, I believe, the Crime Watch program in the city,
Neighborhood Watch.
the Neighborhood Watch. They have the ability to contact those people. I would say after the task force is done meeting regularly, then send an email blast to these people at that point, and say we're armed and ready to go.
I would think it would be very interesting and important if a hypothetical number of 40 people responded they'd like that to their neighborhoods. And I want to take note, it would be useful to you in any request for a public relations person on X number of hours per week and month. It'd be very important information for us to receive that there are that many interested people. From my own point of view, I don't want to stand on this forever, but I think you going to the task force meetings is optional. It's not for me to direct you, but that's a task force that's trying to reinvent or take a look at this ordinance from a separate and different point of view. And you're welcome to go. Public's welcome to go.
I'm
I've
glad
gone.
that you're pretending to be my supervisor, but
I just said I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're welcome to go, but that's not my highest priority.
good, when you apply for my job and get it, you can decide what the priorities are.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure. Cameron, excuse me.
so at the meeting today, are we going to suggest to our fellow commissioners that they strongly consider preparing themselves for, thinking about how they might be able to put these instruments that we've developed into practice? But there's not going to be any kind of command performance. Nobody's going to have to do anything. Am I right on that?
Absolutely true. I think what we do is we describe to them that we've developed now reasonably the third of the 3 documents we set out to do, that being this PowerPoint. And it's in the can and ready to go effectively. That it's an option. It would take a rules change or some other mechanism to require it of any commissioner, and I don't think we're there, not close to there. And well short of that, we can discuss amongst ourselves who's up for doing 1 or 3 a year. And as well, what role we think the IRO's office and the POC has in general in going out to the community with these kinds of shows. And that's really a commission decision. Anything I've said otherwise is not accurate. I have my own views, you have your views, we all have views. And that's fine.
Mr. Chair?
Well,
Shine.
I'd like to
I'm
make
sorry.
a motion.
Commissioner,
No, that's all right.
go ahead, Ben.
No, okay. I'll come back.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the POC the approval as modified of the slideshow presentation with the second recommendation that not only does the IRO staff, not only should the IRO and or her staff make presentations of that slideshow in the community, but also that the commissioners are welcome to volunteer if they desire to make such a presentation in the community, provided that they first observe the IRO one time giving the presentation.
Okay, I'm not, okay.
I don't think that they can approve the slideshow. One, I don't think they need to approve the slideshow, because it's just a document, it's not doing anything. And they haven't seen it, so they couldn't approve it today if, you know, if they wanted to.
My plan was to have this like we do with frequently asked questions, circulated to the,
We can, but we haven't done that,
I don't know, I'm not saying you want to do it the next hour.
oh,
This is a motion to make,
in the future.
yeah, to make, recommend to the commission. That's, the motion originally set up this committee was to make
I understand that,
stuff and make
but I don't think
recommendations.
that you need to approve I don't see the need, the necessity to approve a PowerPoint presentation. I think you can ask, here it is, do you want some input into it? But I don't,
Well, why did we, I thought we approved, we recommended they approve the frequently asked questions, and they did.
yeah, but they didn't have to, I'm just saying, that's just my opinion.
Okay, so you've moved it. I don't know whether we'll vote on it. I'll vote with you, but I'll second it and to move it along. I agree with IRO Hammer. I don't know that the full POC needs to approve the slideshow. I can report out in committee report time that we've achieved completion of this review of this, and it's ready to go for now. So it can always be changed, as can the FAQs. And that will alleviate, then we can move it forward, and they can be aware that we finished the work, which is terrific. She can give the presentation in good conscience with our blessings, and I believe all of us are very happy at the status of it for right now.
But what we have to, I think, go back to the commission on is a recommendation as to whether the commissioner should be making presentations. And for that, I think we need to clearance of the commission.
We perhaps do it.
And that's what we discussed when we set up this committee to begin with.
Okay, so I don't know that I'm prepared to develop a motion between now and 4:30 on,
I'm not talking about anything being presented to the POC for approval, because they haven't, as Stan pointed out, they haven't seen the slideshow. You have to do it for the next.
for a month from now.
Yeah.
All right.
You distribute the slides like we do with frequently asked questions. She distributes the slideshow to everybody, and then they would be raised at the next POC meeting, and we'd see whether, for all I know, the commission will vote because they don't want commissioners to go out and do this. I don't know. There's a risk, I must say, of, depending on who the commissioner is, there's a risk that somebody could go out and say some really strange stuff that gets them in trouble, gets it all into trouble. So it's a mixed bag whether you serve commissioners.
Yep.
Or authorize commissioners.
The motion is that we ask the full POC's approval of A, the slideshow, and B, of commissioner participation. That's your motion. I think we don't need the slideshow. I would vote against your motion. I think we should have a discussion amongst the commission about their participation on a voluntary basis, and I'm not sure a motion is needed for that, and if they want one, upon my presentation today, they can ask for it, and I'll draft one up for the following.
I am just complying with our motion that sets up this committee, which you just, which says that we're supposed to be making a recommendation back to the POC. So what's the recommendation? You tell me. Does it not say that?
In order to report its recommendations at police, yes, it does, to say that we should have reported our recommendations at a police commission's meeting on January 10th, 2013. So maybe we're completely out of order, maybe this isn't really happening. For now, Commissioner Cameron, do you have any comments on the motion on the table?
It seems that, I don't know, when in doubt, I usually try to go for the formal approval. I would, and I'm not going to make any motion at this point, but it seems like we're coming to the end of our work as a committee. And a clearing up the idea of who's gonna be authorized to go out and give the presentation. And then B, whether it's through the IRO's office, I guess it'd be through the IRO's office, to say, we've got a group here that would like a presentation. Any of you guys want to, or women, men or women, want to go present? And so I don't know that we need this committee to be meeting to make that kind of
I take your point.
designation.
It could also, if I may, it could also be the commissioners soliciting, it's not
Oh,
just.
yeah.
I mean, I go to my own West Side Coalition meeting and
Sure.
say, by the way, are you interested in this kind of presentation?
Exactly.
So it wouldn't just be the IRO's
Right.
burden to try to identify. But the only reason I'm talking about approval, the slideshow is because you've got, if you're going to ask for approval of the commission to authorize commissioners to go out and do what? I mean, you've got to have something there to say, this is what we think is okay to make a presentation.
It seems to have some symmetry to, when we approve the frequently asked questions as a commission, it seems to have symmetry to approve the slideshow as the other
The last piece.
piece of that, of our work.
Okay.
Tend to have, have a month for them to give some input. Well, I think if you've got a presentation to make, I don't see any reason she couldn't go ahead and use what she's got, but
Yeah,
that might be fudging a little bit, I don't know.
just because if I can say, just because we have a motion approving it, doesn't bar her from making some other presentation. I mean, this is just something that we're saying we approve for a commission to make a
Commissioners,
presentation on,
Right,
if the
okay.
commission decides
All right.
they want to make a
I'll take
presentation.
your point. At this point, let's call the question. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Are there any other matters to be discussed here today?
I would just, I must say, I would tend to concur with Commissioner Cameron that this is a special committee that's been set up for a special purpose. And I'm not sure that, at least, I'm not sure monthly meetings are required at this point, once we get this approved at the POC level. But
Well, at this point,
Maybe
it's
have just
probably a
a
fair
chair.
time to discuss abandoning this committee after today. There is no need to meet a month from now to rediscuss.
Either
These same things.
that, or you could leave the committee in the way it is, but at the next meetings at the call of the chair.
Suspend meetings.
Yeah, something
off the
comes, if something
calendar.
comes up, you know,
That
you
makes
just think
sense.
it's a matter that
I
needs to
like
be
that
addressed
even
by the
better.
committee, and you call a meeting.
Okay. I move then that we suspend further meetings until requested.
Subject to the call of the chair.
Subject to the call of the chair or as requested by members of this committee. And we'll leave the committee, for the time being, consisting of the same 4 people.
Second.
Thank you. Further comments?
But you may also want to subject, I guess if the IRO wants a meeting, she'll just talk to the chair. And
That's fair enough. All in favor? Aye. None opposed? That passed unanimously. I want to pick up and go. We have 25 minutes for the POC hearing. I see one member of the audience is raising his hand again. Please speak quickly.
Yes, I just wanted to suggest that you might use the power of media, the multiplication power of media, to do a video of this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation, that could be posted on the city website. And not only that, but it could also be posted on the Albuquerque City Council's YouTube channel, which the task force is taking advantage of right now.
Okay.
If you go to the city council's website page and look at their current projects, you click on that and they have a whole listing of current projects. The very top one is the Police Oversight Task Force. You click on that, you'll find all their agendas, you'll find all their meetings, you'll find videos of their meetings, you'll find,
We wouldn't belong there, though.
all
We
kinds
belong
of,
separate.
excuse me?
We would not belong there. We would belong separate. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.
Well, yes, I understand that, but I'm just saying, but you'll see how that task force is using the power of multimedia.